Coming up on Kentucky Outlook, we're calling it the Great Digital Divide as the nation focuses on whistleblower Edward Snowden. As Americans, are we naive to think that we really still have something called privacy? And later in the program, the internet and social media, they create a vast opportunity for good, but by the same token, a breeding ground for predators. We're going to find out more about that, and we're going to round out the half hour with teaching you how to be a more savvy internet consumer. Kentucky Outlook is next. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. We're going to be talking about something we call the digital divide. A lot of different issues related to that digital world out there. Cyber criminals, how they're targeting our youth, and how digital forensics are helping to catch some of these perps. And later in the show, a representative of the Better Business Bureau is going to join us to teach us how to be a more savvy consumer on the internet. But first, we're hearing a lot lately in the news about a man named Edward Snowden and this issue called privacy in this digital world. We're going to talk more about that as we welcome to the program Cody Turner. Cody Turner is a consultant with WKU's Information Technology Division and the president and founder of Consvlt LLC. Thank you for being here, Cody.
Pleasure to be here.
In addition, Gordon Johnson joins us. He is also with WKU's Information Technology. He is the Associate Vice President. So we got the big dogs here to talk about this. So just your first reaction when you've been hearing this news about, and I don't want to debate that story, but just in general, this is what you do for a living. When you heard this story, your thoughts?
Mixed feelings. You know, you want to be shocked when you hear something like this, but I'm sure Gordon can chime in. I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised.
Same, Gordon?
I'm not surprised either. I think the bigger your digital footprint, the more you're online, the more entities you interact with, the more accounts you create, the more you expose yourself to the risk of this kind of thing. So, I mean, that's just the day and age we live in. I mean, if you want to crawl in a hole and not do anything online, then you may be able to prevent your exposure, but otherwise, there's a risk, and everybody needs to understand the risk. So,
that having been said, you know, that's a blanket statement. There's a risk. Now, what I'm hearing you say, though, is you can't do just a little bit. Like, you can't be a little bit pregnant. You just, you know, you can't just do a little bit. Any exposure out there is going to put you at risk.
I absolutely agree. I think in any manner where you have a question like this, you just have to examine the nature of what it is you're discussing. And the nature of the internet is, we like to think of it as, I send some message to your computer and there's a direct line. But the reality is that's far from the truth. You know, we have this sort of soup can and twine analogy that we think of, and it just doesn't work that way. There are a myriad of devices in between your computer and where you're sending the information. And because of that nature, the access to that information it's readily available, readily.
So this thing called privacy, are we naive to think that we can still be a private person in this day and time?
I don't. It just depends on, you know, the level to which your information is private. I think that whole thing has shifted, and people used to, you know, keep files in their back bedroom, and the insurance company had paper files, and although there was an exposure there, I mean, these days with everything online, it's pretty much this database is connected to that database. When you go online and create an account with anybody, whether it's somebody like Amazon, eBay, your bank, you'll notice, and most people don't read it, but there's a privacy agreement that you usually click through. And those privacy agreements can vary greatly. They can say, we will not share your information at all with anybody, or we will share it with folks who are subsidiaries of ours or related to us, who we do business with. And so, I mean, it's just something that most folks don't really think about or are not aware of. And you're oftentimes giving people the license to share your information with whoever they want to. So, my advice to anybody is just try to educate yourself to whatever degree you can about how this stuff works, and don't fool yourself into thinking that you're at all, you know, safe. So,
not at risk.
Not at risk.
Let's talk about this cohort of young people, okay? There is a generation now that maybe they don't even realize that privacy was something that you could have at one point in time. And so the risk involved, because come into the picture, social media. You know, now we've got another extension of how to share your information.
Sure, they feel comfortable providing their information to Facebook and Google Plus and these different outlets. And these venues provide means for you to restrict access to certain groups, circles, friends, whatever the case may be. But back to what Gordon said, that information exists on a database somewhere, and it's out there. And by that very nature, people can get to it. It was just in the news just the other day that several million Facebook accounts, email addresses, and other information was exposed. So it happens.
The other thing that's a moving target with that is Facebook, Google Plus. They're constantly changing the security around their applications, and so something that may not be exposed initially, they may change it so it is exposed, and so you constantly have to keep up with that. I mean, it's a moving target no matter how you cut it, and you have to constantly be vigilant and sort of keep up with what different apps are doing. So,
and most of us have really no idea of the complexity of the software that powers Facebook. I mean, they could be on their 30th or 40th revision at this point, but it's transparent to the end user. And with that complexity, increases the risk that some security flaw is exposed or there's some vulnerability in the system that somebody can exploit.
And users becoming more sophisticated, and hence the reason that it continues to be a moving target, because you know they might think that they've got it solved and we can safe keep our members, but then guess what? Somebody smarter comes along.
we had a quick story. We had an auditor come into our office as part of an annual audit, and this person 5 or 6 years ago when they were younger and in college, they had some stuff on Facebook that they didn't know was still out there. And some of my folks were just Googling around and found this person, and there was embarrassing pictures they wouldn't want in their professional life. They didn't know about them. They didn't know that Facebook was exposing them. So, I mean, even if you don't care about it when you're younger, when you get older, if you don't go back and clean up your digital footprint a little bit, it can come back and bite you.
Let's talk about that digital footprint. Can you clean up your digital footprint? Or once it's out there, it's gone?
I think you can clean it up to some degree if you keep track of where you've been. You can probably go back and kind of check and see. One way to do it is Google yourself. I mean, Googling yourself is a great practice. Most people should do that regularly just to see what's out there. So you can clean it up some. You can know what's out there on yourself. Knowing what's available will help you to some degree, but there's probably some pieces of it you never can clean up.
Right. The one thing that you can't prevent is if you put some information out on the internet, regardless of how you try to restrict that to certain audiences, well, by very fact, you've given them access to it. And then what do they do with it? You know, so I really don't think you can completely clean the slate.
So we sound like victims to a certain extent. You know, we're talking about risk and victims, and then if someone puts something ugly or not so true about you out there, not much you can do about that either.
I would say at some level you have control of information until you hit the send button, until you hit the submit button. Once you do that, you pretty much lose control of it. So, I mean, if you've got it on your own personal device and you lock that device down and you keep your password secure, you know, you have control of that unit. You have some control of it. But in the online cloud sky world that's out there, once you hit submit, you really don't know where it goes. And you really don't know who's looking at it. And this whole Snowden thing is a stark example of, you know, people think they're protected, but they're not. So.
And who knows what they know about us? Who knows?
Well, they want to develop profiles that they can use for various, you know, legitimate and illegitimate reasons. So, I mean, it's some of it's, you know, valid, some of it's not so valid.
So let the buyer beware.
Let the buyer beware.
Leave us with some words of wisdom, Cody.
Look, you know, as technology improves and gets more advanced, it really has come full circle and it more mirrors day-to-day life, you know. So if you wouldn't be comfortable exposing some information to your parents, your friends in person, don't do it online. It's as simple as that.
It really is just that simple. Cody Turner is the president and founder of Consvlt LLC and a consultant with WKU's IT division. In addition, we have the associate vice president of WKU's Information Technology division, Gordon Johnson. When we come back, we're going to talk about online predators and how digital forensics are making it easier to catch some of these perps. Don't go away. Kentucky Outlook continues. Kentucky Outlook continues. I'm Barbara Deeb. You know, online predators are alive and well and likely closer than you care to admit. We're going to find out more about how digital forensics are helping in that area as we welcome to the program Ronnie Ward, representing the Bowling Green Police Department. Thanks for being here, Ronnie.
Thank you, Barbara.
In addition, we are joined by Detective Jared Merris, and that's your area of expertise, these cyber crimes, so to speak. So when we talk about cyber crimes, you know, not just predators, but we also have bullying, and so what fits under that subject head?
Well, anything that's internet related.
Okay.
Anything that you can track someone, you can threaten someone, you can harass someone, you can stalk someone, you can view explicit pictures of people. Anything that's internet related really is all wrapped up in that nice, neat little bundle.
So identity theft as well, I suspect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
That's sort of a different avenue, but it is wrapped up all together.
Okay, you've been doing this a little while. You've been in the biz. Where, you know, you're getting there. You're adding up those years. How do you see this kind of crime changing and growing?
Growing mainly. Changing, it just depends on what new social media comes about. It's just a new way to be able to get away with some of these things or attempt to get away with it.
We talk about forensics. That's one of those fancy schmancy words, and Law and Order, thank you, and CSI has made that certainly more part of our vernacular. But breaking these codes, if you will, or the forensics of trying to target these perpetrators, how has that changed?
Well, that's been very difficult because they oftentimes will develop software that blocks out people who are trying to look inside. So we have a software, then the bad guys have, then the good guys are able to break into it, then they change their software. So it's ever changing it. And it makes it a little more difficult, so you have to come up with more technology. So the technology is always cutting edge for the bad guys, and it's just a little behind for the good guys. But usually they can come up with a way to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because people watching the show, you know, you're in the contiguous area and you're thinking, that doesn't happen here. Guess what? I bet you'd tell a different story.
It does. The way I put it is any crime you can see on TV, it's going to happen here locally as well. It may not be on as a large of scale, but it's still here, and it still keeps us very busy.
For a long time, when we talk about children and predators, they were using these more secluded chat rooms to gain access to these young children, the perpetrators. Now we have social media, which just has kind of just exploded the whole business. So how does it take us through a case? I know you can't get specific, but someone who might come to you and say, you know, we fear that maybe our son or daughter is in a bad situation. Is that how it usually comes to you?
Yeah, it's basically it's taking the pedophile out of the parks and, you know, near playgrounds and just sticks them at home. They can do it with a little more anonymity, but it's still there. They target vulnerability just like they would anybody on the playgrounds or in person. Yeah.
And also you can be someone that you're not on the internet. So you can say you're another 15-year-old boy and you're really a 50-year-old man, or you can say you're a 15-year-old girl, so that you can, and that you'll use language that 15-year-olds would use, so that you can misrepresent yourself and they will trust you.
That's so frightening. So again, getting back to how you might hear about something like this, is this something you get a tip, a parent calls, I'm concerned?
All the above, yeah. Sometimes the parents that have access to their children's Facebook, which, you know, oftentimes they do, they'll intercept a message that's coming in that just doesn't seem right to them. And sometimes they'll dig on their own and kind of investigate on their own at first and realize this person is nobody that my child truly knows. You know, it may know them on the internet, but they don't go to school with this person, anything like that. So
Well, you hit the stop right there, because did you hear what he said? A parent might go in and check. Let's talk about, earlier we were talking with Gordon Johnson and Cody Turner about really you're at risk whenever you put any kind of information out there, and especially a child, a young person who's putting out this information. So there is a certain caregiver, parental sort of guidance policy that should be in place?
I absolutely believe so. If you bought the computer's yours. And your children don't need to be in rooms, chat rooms, or doing things on the computer that, one, you don't know about, and two, that you don't control. So I think a large part of it is either parental, just sort of in the middle of it, just making sure that you understand everything that your child is doing. You're intercepting these messages, you're viewing the messages, you know who they're talking to, and it's a conversation that you have with your kids, that you straight up with them say, I want to know everything that you're doing. Feel comfortable talking to me about this, because let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to find this on the internet. It's no big secret. It's already there. First of all, if they have a computer, they already know it's there. So I don't think you're going to shock them into letting them know what they're going to see or what they're going to view, what they're going to come across, or who's going to try to contact them. And they need to understand the risks before they ever turn the power on.
You agree with that?
100%. I think prevention is the best way. Talking with your kids, setting their privacy settings under their profiles on these computers where they can't access some things. Know their username and password to be able to check on their emails or their Facebook or whatever, because the prevention is what's going to stop something worse from happening. Not just being maybe targeted online, but even going as far as to a child or young adult being talked into meeting up with somebody who at first said they're 15, but it turns out they meet up and they're 40. It's going to prevent a lot worse crime than just behind a computer. It could lead to actual physical type of contact and things like that.
Okay, so you got your parental controls on. You're talking about a parent or a caregiver who comes to you and says, something just doesn't smell right about this, okay? Then what? They file a complaint. Where do you go from there?
Then whatever they turn over to us, then we investigate. For example, if they're concerned about a certain profile, there are numerous websites out there that I can take the picture that's being used of this profile, plug it into a search engine, and it'll tell me everywhere else that this picture's been. So if it's fake, if it's been downloaded off the internet, we can tell, and anybody can do that. The general public, it's free.
Oh, but that's got to make your job so hard. So are you making headway when it comes to catching some of these perpetrators?
We are. It's like he said earlier, their technology advances, but ours does too. And we are able to track them in various ways right to their front door a lot of times.
And then, of course, we have the issue of cyberbullying. We've heard so much about this of late, and young people being bullied on the internet to the point where some have committed suicide. They can't take it anymore. So how do we define bullying? I may not like what you say to me, it might be true, but does that necessarily make you a bully?
Well, it's easy to bully someone online versus bullying in person, because if I pick a fight with you online, I'm probably going to win, because in my mind, I think I do win. If I pick a fight in person, maybe not so much. But bullying just simply is someone consistently or adamantly, just continually bothering you, picking on you, calling you names, pretty much anything that you would consider what we would say old-time bullying was. It's the same thing. It's just now they're doing it online where more people can see it.
And they can be anonymous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have the power of law behind us? When, if I feel like I'm being bullied on the internet, do you have the laws and the power, the enforcement?
Usually we can make something fit. Harassment are good ones. Stalking, it can lead to stalking. We don't have any legislation right now or any KRS for cyberbullying specifically. As the times change, I'm sure that'll come about at some point, but usually we can make, like I said, harass communications. Those are misdemeanor offenses, but they're still offenses that are chargeable offenses.
But you think the law is going to have to adapt to this changing landscape?
It will, and it's starting to. You see other states doing it now, so, and I'm sure that we'll we'll be right there.
There you go. And now why don't you leave us with some words of wisdom, Ronnie?
The biggest thing is just know what your kids are doing. Just pay attention to, so don't just turn them loose on the computer and let them go and do and be without you knowing exactly what's going on. They're your kids, you're in charge of raising them, and if you wanted them raised like you want them raised, then pay attention to what they're doing.
It's your responsibility. We've been talking with Ronnie Ward of the Bowling Green Police Department and Detective Jared Merris, also of the Bowling Green Police Department, about cyberbullying and cyber predators. Now, how to be a more savvy consumer on the internet? We're going to talk about that next when Kentucky Outlook continues. Kentucky Outlook continues. We're talking about this great digital divide today. We've talked about being safe on the internet and social media sites, and then predators and bullying. And now we're going to talk about being a consumer on the internet. As we welcome to the program the division, I'm going to call you the division chief of the Bowling Green Area Better Business Bureau, Linda Chambers, joins us. Linda, you know, I think we can wrap up this half hour by simply saying, if it sounds too good to be true, guess what? Chances are it is.
It definitely is, yes. If it sounds too good to be true, don't even fall for it.
Now, for years with the Better Business Bureau, you've looked at businesses that might be not so good, some that are good, and you give them a rating.
Yes, we
you
do.
look at their
Yes.
credentials and that kind of thing, and it helps consumers. But now we enter this world of the internet out there, social media sites. How even do you begin with that?
You just have to be really careful, and you have to have all the safeguards in place, and use someone that you trust, and definitely do not click on something that you got unsolicited, because that's where they get in and steal all of your information. And ID theft is running rampant all over this country, and that's one of the things that they can do, because you click on something that you didn't ask for, and so that's where people get it mostly.
That's so important. So if someone has a complaint about a particular business, they can come to the Better Business Bureau and check it out, or file that complaint. How does that work?
Oh, it's very easy. Our website is bbb.org, and you can check on a company before you do business with them, which is what we recommend, because then you'll find out what their letter grade is, and we do A+ to F. So if you check on this company and they've got an F rating, you're probably going to try to find another company that is selling the same item that you need that doesn't have an F rating.
And now, how does this rating work? I suspect there's a large number of things that you look at, but what are some of the top things?
Some of the things that we look at is the length of time that they have been in business. We want to know the name of the CEO or the owner of the company, where they're located, if they have a storefront. The people who have a storefront are usually safer to do business with maybe than just an internet business. And so we look at a lot of different things, and we look at the how many complaints they have had, or the severity of the complaint, because some are more severe than others. And we also look at the type of company it is. There are, and a business has to be like an A or a B before they can even become a member of the Better Business Bureau and say that they are accredited by us. And there are businesses that we will not even accept as an accredited business because of the type of business that they have. We don't feel like it's an ethical business. Some of the payday loan places, their interest rates are astronomical. We don't feel that that is an ethical way to do business, so therefore they can't be accredited.
Gotcha.
That's just one.
And just talking about these different, now bricks and mortar, you're saying the Better Business Bureau might be more likely to give a better rating to someone who's actually got bricks and mortar, someplace where you can go if there's an issue. But this whole internet has created a whole cloud of just different areas. So how do you track that kind of thing?
Well, we look at complaints against that company, and we check their website for the privacy policy. And what does that privacy policy say? Does it say we will not share your information with anyone? Or as Mr. Johnson said earlier, maybe they'll share it with some people. You want to make sure that your information is not going to be shared. And so those are some of the things that we look for. And in order to be an accredited business with us, you have to have a privacy policy on your website, or we won't allow you to be.
A
Those-
member of the Better Business
Right.
Bureau. You're referencing Gordon Johnson, the Vice President for Information Technology at WKU, who was one of our first segment guests. And you're right. He said the bottom line is most people don't read that privacy
Right.
policy. They scroll right through it, they put accept, and boom, they move on. And then later they're questioning, why did they share my information? So very important
Yes,
that you
it is.
read the fine print,
Right.
even if it's not just on the internet. Okay,
Yes.
so things are changing in that regard, in the way businesses do business. So the Better Business Bureau is having to adapt.
Oh, yes, we are. And we're having to adapt in many different ways. You know, we have a Facebook page and we have a Twitter account and all those things. And people can go and look at our Facebook and learn the latest. And it's also on our website. You can learn about all the latest scams on our website and know which ones, you know, what's safe and what's not safe.
And that was my next question, because working with the Better Business Bureau, and of course as a journalist, I am constantly amazed at the extent to which people will go to scam someone else. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. It really is. I mean, they will do anything to scam someone. And I said, I wish they would use their intelligence that they use to do all this hacking and everything they do for something that's good for someone.
In a more positive way.
Yes.
So, you know, help our audience understand why it's important to be a more savvy consumer when
Oh,
you're
you
on the
must.
internet.
Because you could have your identity stolen. You could have your credit cards stolen and used in many different places. They can take everything from you. I know a young man who's was going to start college, and when he went to start college, then is when he started applying for money, and he found out that his identity had been hacked years before, and he could not get a loan to go to college. He couldn't get anything because he was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. He had never checked it. You must check constantly your credit card balances and make sure that you
Your credit report too.
your credit report. You can do that once a year with each credit company. And we have that information on our website as well, how you can do that.
Good
You
advice.
must do that.
Good advice. We've been talking with Linda Chambers, who's with the Bowling Green Area Better Business Bureau, and we've been talking about this great digital divide, how to be a more savvy digital consumer. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. Until next time, I'm Barbara Deeb. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here.